and some are more practiced at it than others. And a whole category of people that we don't always think of when we're walking outside are musicians. And they're makers, in my mind, of the highest order, because not only do they make something out of nothing, but they work together to make something that's bigger than all of them. And we're really lucky. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. We're really lucky today. A couple months ago, while we were traveling around the area looking to see what was interesting, I had an opportunity to go to Cranbrook Institute. And while I was up there, I met James Kurleto, who is going to be doing a lot of the talking tonight. And when I learned that there was a group of artists who got together to explain physics and science and music, I got really excited, and I thought this would be one of the real marquee moments of this Maker Faire in Detroit. It's something that we don't have at all in Silicon Valley. So they're setting up. They're going to be ready in two fingers. And the way it's going to work is they're going to introduce themselves, and they're going to take us through a lecture. They're going to ask at the end or during the course of it, they're going to ask you guys some questions, and then at the end, if there's any time left over, there might be some time for you guys to ask the artists questions that I'm sure you'll have. With that, let me turn it over. So James and Linda Boston of the Arts League of Michigan will introduce all the musicians, and I'm going to sit back and enjoy it with you guys. So thank you very much.
All right, I'll bring the lights up.
Well, thank you very much. Whoa, here we are. My name is James Kurleto. I work at the Cranbrook Institute of Science, and like we just were explaining, we're going to have several musicians up here who are just finishing setting up, and this is sort of an interesting blend of the science, which I'll be taking on here, and the music, which these musicians will have. And we've been going out to high schools throughout Detroit for the past half year or so, and presenting this, matching up with their own curriculum. So this is sort of an interesting venue for us, something a little different. We hope you'll enjoy it. And like I said, at the end, we'll provide some time for some questions, for some feedback, or anything else that you'd like to bring up at that time. So if we could bring the screen down now and get the projection going.
That was close. You know that was close, right?
All right, I'll turn it over to Linda and the musicians now.
Hey, everybody, how you feel? Good. I want you all to participate and have a lot of fun, okay? All right now. You
side, we're going to have some music, and I'm going to try to explain some of the science behind the music. So we're going to start out very simple here. We're going to start out with the question, what is sound? First of all, sound can be music, like we've been hearing right now. But if we don't like how it sounds, we might just call it noise. And even as I'm speaking, I'm producing sound as well. So sound can take many forms, but just what is it? Well, if you remember high school, or if you've not reached high school yet, or if it's been a while, we might have to do a little refresher here. Sound is a compressional wave of energy, which is simply an oscillation of pressures through a medium.
Oh, that's too much information.
Okay, well, we can try to break that down for you a bit. Let's start. It's Saturday, we're relaxing. Let's start simple. We'll start with the idea that sound is energy. Did you bring some energy with you here today?
Yeah, let me see your energy. Show me your energy. Yeah!
So energy can take many forms. It can be light, it can be chemical energy, it can be thermal energy. Sound is just one type of energy. And it needs some sort of medium, some sort of matter to travel through, as we well know. Right now, sound is traveling through the gas, through the air surrounding us to reach your eardrums, which eventually sends an electrical impulse to your brains, which you interpret as sound. But sound can also travel through liquids or solids as well. If we went out into outer space, of course, in a vacuum of outer space, we would not be able to hear a thing because there's no medium, no matter for the sound to travel through.
Say what? No, so you're talking, this is crazy. Because when you're at the show and you see these movies with all this booming and banging and all that carrying on in outer space, that's not real?
No, that's Hollywood.
That's Hollywood swing.
Yeah, so if there is no medium, if there is no matter, sound cannot travel. But sound travels in a special way. Sound travels in waves. And we're going to talk about two different types of waves here. The first one we're familiar with, if you've ever been at the ocean or at a lake where waves are traveling up and down, yet they're moving towards the shore, you're familiar with one type of wave called a transverse wave. In fact, we could even demonstrate this for them if we imagine that we're at Maker Faire on this fine afternoon.
All right, let's imagine that.
Get the wave going. The wave was traveling back and forth. So the oscillation of the matter was perpendicular to the direction of the wave. That was a transverse wave. And if you remember again high school physics or even middle school physics, you might remember that we have different names for different parts of the wave. If we go to the highest point of the wave, that's the crest. The lowest point, the trough. We measure how high a wave is, we call that the amplitude. We measure the distance between two wave patterns, that's the wavelength. Makes sense. Now what does this have to do with all these musicians up here? Well, these musicians rely on something that they know of, and we know of, as frequency. When each musician plays, they produce their own frequency. And what frequency does is it measures how many wave patterns are traveling past the point per second. So usually we measure it in hertz, how many wave patterns per second. So each of these musicians need to know something about the frequency that their instruments produce in order to hit the right tone, hit the right note, to be in tune there. So, first type of wave is transverse, but sound does not travel in transverse waves. Sound actually travels in a second type of wave that we call compressional waves. If you've ever been sitting at a stoplight, or maybe this is even your own car, and you have the bass turned all the way up, and you get that loud bass sound going, you can actually feel these compressional waves traveling through your body. Very good. So sound, like as I'm speaking, I'm compressing some of these air molecules around me closer together, these compressions up here, and that of course causes others to be further apart, these rarefactions between the compressions. So when they hit your eardrums, you interpret that as sound. We could do it on a larger scale, like with the bass drum that Galen has. even bring out sort of a small homemade air cannon, we could say, made out of a trash can with a tarp stretched over the end and a hole on the bottom. Well, we could try it out here in the front row. I don't know if we'll be able to reach it, but we'll see. So if we just give it a punch, just like the bass drum, let's see if we can cause some compressional waves. Oh, you want to? All right. Oh, this young man is willing. Okay.
Both go.
All right. Come on. Oh.
Oh, send her. Right.
So right there, let's just try to give it a punch here. Let's see if we can get a little change to happen here. A little bit of energy traveling towards you through a compression. Here we go. There we go. With the air cannon. Here, young man, you can try it here as well. Let's give it a push here. You can actually feel the compressions of the air. Thank you very much. Give him a hand. So a simple do-it-yourself-there project. Air cannon really causes you to feel those compressional waves of sound energy in your body. And what we're going to do now is we're going to measure these compressions. We're going to bring up some software, an instrument called an oscilloscope. And with that, we can measure the compression. Sound travels in a compressional wave. I want you to remember that. We're going to quiz you at the end. So we're going to measure these compressions with each instrument here, and we're going to display it, visualize it on the screen here with our oscilloscope. So let me switch over here. Turn it on. There we go. All right, a little hard to visualize. Can you see it back there? All right. We can lower the lights.
There you go.
All right. Well, we're going to start with Ibrahim on bass. So if we could bring the spotlight over to the bass. Sound energy is starting with vibrations. As Ibrahim plucks each string, it's causing it to vibrate, which causes the air around it to compress together. And we can measure these compressions here. Now, a bass is a very low instrument. So we should see these waves of sound far apart. So we would have a low frequency, a long wavelength. And we can see that there. How about if we shorten a string on the bass? See the waves get closer together. A shorter wavelength means a higher frequency. If we lengthen the string, longer wavelength, lower frequency. All right, well done. Give it up for Ibrahim. All right, next up here we have two percussive instruments. Well, one of them is a real percussion instrument this time around. But we're going to start with the obvious percussion instrument, and that is going to be Galen on drums.
Hello, everybody. Well, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the way my drum set works. A long time ago, before this modern drum kit came into being, the drums were made in Africa by trees, basically. Nowadays they're made by, you have fiberglass, some drums are fiberglass, some drums are still wood. But the way that they made them was they would cut these trees down into different sizes, and if you wanted a high sound, you have a small size, and a big sound, you want to get a low size. And they would take an animal skin, stretch it over the top of the drum, but before they did that, they had to make the inside empty. They had to make the inside of the tree trunk hollow, because if it wasn't hollow and you just put a drum head over a solid tree trunk, it's just going to sound like this. No air is going to be able to pass through. No vibration is going to happen. So they had to make it hollow so that when you hit it, the skin would vibrate, and the vibration would cause air to pass through the hole and to make sounds to sound more like this. So that's how my drums work. And if you want a high sound, as I said, you must have a small drum, because if you try to tune a big drum and to get a high sound, you're going to just break the head because you won't be able to get it tight enough. And the same with a low sound. You won't be able to get a low sound on a high drum because it's too small and the vibrations are faster. So you won't be able to get a low sound no matter how low you tune it. So that's how my drum set works. So I'm going to show you my amplitude and my wavelength. Like I'm directing air traffic. I'm going to show you that first. I'm going to show you, well, at the same time, I'm going to show you my wavelength, starting with the bass drum, and I'm also going to show you my amplitude, which is also the frequency or the hardness of which I hit the drum. So I'm going to start soft. So the harder I hit the drum, the higher my amplitude gets. And you can see my wavelength on this drum is wide. Let's try this drum. The wavelength is a little shorter because it's a smaller drum. You see this drum. And the wavelength is a little shorter on that one because it's a smaller sound, a higher sound. Let's see what it all sounds like together.
Thank you very much. Now we have another instrument up here that could be a percussion instrument, but today we're going to simulate it electronically. So that's going to be Pam on keyboards.
Hi everybody. How are you today? Well, what makes this really neat? Well, I'm kind of mad because it's not a real piano, so I have to do a simulation, which I get tired of. But anyway, it's percussive as well as harmonic. Now, if you looked inside a real piano, which I'm sure many of you have, just taken them apart. If you look inside of it, it's encased in wood. You see a lot of brass, you see a lot of steel, and you see a lot of keys. And what's really neat is like you'll see the key is hooked up to this wooden plank that's hooked up to a metal clip. And when you strike the key, it hits these strings and makes the string vibrate to produce the sound. Now, just similar to Ibrahim's bass and other string instruments you see, the thicker the string, the lower the sound, the thinner the string, the higher the pitch. So
that striking on that string is what makes it a percussive instrument.
Yep. And you can try this too with your head. You can hold your mouth open and go, ooh. You know how you used to do that in school. Okay, so anyway, I'm going to see what my amplitude and my waveform looks like. So if I hit a high note,
Ooh, that's really squeaky, isn't it?
squeaky. If I hit a lower note, you'll see they get longer. Lower. Ooh, now they're becoming farther and further apart. Now let's see what they all sound like together. And I think the piano is such a lovely instrument. Everyone should play it.
Taco Bell.
So far with all these musicians, you have seen a relationship between the volume of the sound produced and the amplitude here. Amplitude really measures the amount of energy in the sound wave. So a higher amplitude means more energy is being added here, and we'll hear a louder sound. Now we're really going to see the frequency, the changes in frequency, and what that means for the wave patterns up here. We're going to have a wind instrument this time, a brass instrument, and that's John on trumpet.
Thanks, James. How's everybody doing? I can't really see anybody, but I want you to do something with me.
want you to form your lips as if you're about to say the letter M. Okay, now keep the corners of your mouth tight and blow air through the middle. All right, that's how. That's the vibration that's going to get everything going to make a sound on the trumpet. Okay. Okay. So you buzz your lips into the mouthpiece. The mouthpiece focuses the vibration into the horn. The air column inside the horn begins to oscillate, and then you hear a tone produced. The trumpet is pretty loud, and it's actually the soprano voice of the brass family. So if that holds true to what we're going to witness on the oscilloscope, we should see very high amplitude and shorter wavelengths.
Becomes so short, there's such a high frequency that you can barely make out the wave patterns there. Now we have one more musician up here, and that of course is Linda on vocals. So she's going to start pushing air out of her lungs, through her vocal cords, producing sound.
And the living is easy, fish are jumping, and the cotton is high. Your daddy's rich, and your mama's good looking, so hush, little baby, don't you cry. One of these mornings you're gonna rise up singing, and you'll spread your little wings and take to the sky. But till that morning, there's nothing can harm you, with daddy and mama standing high. And you know what? Your vocal cords, thank you, your vocal cords are your natural mechanism for vibration in your own body. Everyone vibrates 24/7. So as you breathe, you are vibrating. Now we're going to try something here so you can feel that. Put your hand on your throat. I want you to hum. Feel the vibration? Now hum a little higher, an octave higher. Go a little higher. You feel how the difference in the vibration? Now I want everybody on the count of 3 to say, hey, 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 3 times and watch your own oscillation there. 1, 2, 3. Hey, hey, hey. Try it again. Hey.
All right, thank you. Thank you to all these musicians here. Thank you very much. So now what we're going to do is we're going to share with you some properties of sound. We're going to bring down the oscilloscope here. I believe we can bring the house lights up a little bit. Here we go. All right, yeah, there you are. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to talk about a property of sound called interference. We think of interference usually as being a bad thing. You're listening to the radio on your way over here and suddenly you start getting some static. Something was broadcasting on the same frequency. That's not a good thing. But these musicians rely on interference. Interference is something they depend on in order to produce these very loud sounds that can fill an entire auditorium. So, what we're going to do is we're going to play another song, and as they play, I'm going to bring up a model on the screen of the different wave patterns generated by each musician, and we're going to see them interfering. In order for waves to interfere, they need to be at the same frequency. So really what we're doing up here is just a model, representation of what's happening up here on stage with each musician. Take it away.
Now, make sure you pay attention to this. It's going to be real cool. We're getting ready to make a real pretty picture. Okay, here I go. Here I come. See me coming in the top. Get ready. On the side. Here I am. I'm making my way. It's Ibrahim. Here comes Ibrahim.
just a model of if each musician hit the same frequency that the waves would interfere. When we saw just one wave coming out when Galen was playing drums, and then the second instrument was added, hitting the same frequency would cause constructive interference. The waves would become higher, there would be a greater amplitude. So if two waves are exactly in sync, they're in phase with the crest of one wave lining up with the crest of the other wave, same wavelength, then we will have constructive interference, an amplification, a louder sound. However, we can also have destructive interference. And in fact, we're experiencing this right now in some parts of this auditorium, where if we have two waves of the same frequency that are exactly out of sync, out of phase, where the crest of one wave lines up with the trough of the other, then they could cancel each other out. And that's how those noise-canceling headphones work. They produce a second sound by picking up on all the sounds around it, and by producing a wave that's completely out of phase, it can cancel out the sounds around you. You can hear a much quieter environment around you. And of course, even musicians rely on interference, the compression in the recording studio as well. All right, so what we're going to do is touch upon one more feature of sound, and that is resonance. And to introduce resonance, we'll show you a short movie clip of the Tacoma Narrows Bridge, very famous in the examples of resonance. I just read an article a couple of weeks ago.
Maybe house lights down for this one?
Oh, if we can bring down the house lights, yes. That some scientists are looking at this, that there were other factors besides resonance, but bridges have been sort of infamous throughout their history. Don't march in step over a bridge where bad things could happen.
A big drum and to get a high.
And that is resonance. And to introduce resonance, we'll show you a short movie clip of the Tacoma Narrows Bridge, very famous in the examples of resonance. I just read an article a couple weeks ago.
Maybe house lights down for this one?
Oh, we could bring down the house lights, yes. That some scientists are looking at this, that there were other factors besides resonance, but bridges have been sort of infamous throughout their history. Don't march in step over a bridge or bad things could happen. So we're going to bring up this short movie clip here of the Tacoma Narrows Bridge. This is about 70 or 80 years ago.
Now that's steel and concrete, right, James?
Yes, so this is a modern suspension bridge here. But due to gusts of wind, at least partly, some scientists believe, the bridge developed a reputation for swinging back and forth like this. So for resonance, you can think of pushing a child on a swing. If you push at just the right time, if you add energy at just the right time, that person is going to go higher and higher on the swing. Now the gusts of wind here are pushing against the side of the bridge at just the right time. So you keep adding more and more energy to this bridge. At this point, we should probably mention no one died as a result.
They lost the car, though.
Yeah, they lost the car. And if enough energy is added, eventually something has to give. So in this case, the bridge collapsed. So luckily, if we went up north, for instance, this summer,
you wouldn't have to worry about that on the
Mackinac Bridge. These days, thanks in part to lessons like this one, they build bridges so that all the materials don't resonate at the same frequency. Because each object, everything around us, has its own natural frequency. If you give it a little push or a little tap with your finger, it's going to oscillate, it's going to vibrate at a certain rate. And that's its natural or resonant frequency. So even with these musicians up here, their instruments, they rely on resonance as well. So I'm going to turn it over to John here, and he's going to explain how he relies on resonance with his trumpet.
Thank you, James. All right, I'm back. All right, I said before, you buzz your lips into the mouthpiece, the air column inside the horn begins to oscillate. And the horn itself actually begins to oscillate, and you know the horn is resonating when you hear a much louder sound than you normally would. Now, if you want to hear a higher pitch, or if I want to produce a higher pitch, I will make my lips tighter and blow more air. To produce a lower pitch, I will make my lips looser and blow less air. But if my lips are too loose, and I'm not blowing enough air, you won't hear any sound. If my lips are too tight, I blow too much air, it pulls it off. But if I do it just right, if I hit it just right, then you hear the resonance. Alright, now then you know the horn is resonating. Now I said I could change the pitch by making my lips tighter or looser, or blowing more or less air. I'm also changing the pitch in another way. I'm changing the length of tubing, which causes increases the length of the air column, so that you hear a different pitch in that way. I'm able to play scales and whatever music. But that's a little bit about resonance. Thank you.
Thank you, John. We can bring the lights up now. And each of these musicians, as I said and as John explained, relies on resonance because when they play, it's not only their lips or their strings or the head of their drums that are vibrating, but it's also the air inside their instruments. If you manage to hit that frequency, that resonant frequency of that column of air inside their instrument, then you can produce a much louder sound through resonance.
And in your body too, right? Same thing.
You could, yes.
Air, everything.
When you sing, you rely on resonance as well inside the air cavities, inside your head and chest. So, we can actually demonstrate this on a slightly larger scale by bringing out a large tube. Looks like this. And if we could have, again, perhaps 2 helpers from the audience. Yes, those 2 young ladies. Come on up here. Thank you. Wow, those hands went straight up, so I appreciate that. There we go. All right, come on up. Oh, young man and young lady.
You sure?
Oh, we got it. Come on up, come on. All right, so what we're going to do, I have a little wave generator here. If I turn it on, we'll produce a tone. There we go. That's as loud as it gets. I'm going to turn up the frequency here to about 200 hertz. You can start to hear it. It's still not too loud. But I'm going to bring it over here. Let's see how far I can get.
Let them move down. Come on, go down there.
Here we go. Yep. Shift down here a bit. And go ahead and hold this on the end of the tube here. When we put it on the end of the tube, just like the tubing in the trumpet, At certain points, they'll start getting louder due to resonance. If we get the air inside the tube vibrating at the same frequency, we can get a much louder sound. So let's try to find these points of resonance here. If we could, there's an inside column right there. If you could start pulling that out. Let's see. Right there, yeah. At certain points, there will be no resonance. The wave will bounce off the end, interfere with itself, and it'll interfere destructively. But if we manage to create what we call a standing wave, at just the right spot, this wave of sound will bounce off the end, interfere with itself constructively because it'll be just in phase. This wave will stay up. It will produce a much louder sound. There we go. And if you bring it in again, there we go. No resonance. We'll just hear the sound from the speaker. Let's find one more spot of resonance. Keep bringing it in. Right there again, the air inside the column is resonating again, just like it was in the trumpet. Give our helpers here a big hand. All right, so I'll shut this on. There we go. We're gonna play one more song. Actually, they are. I don't play. I don't say. Well, maybe just this one. Well, they'll play one more song, and as they're playing, I want to draw your attention over to here, this mysterious box over here. What we have in here is a wine glass with a ping pong ball inside of it. It's hard to see, so I'm going to bring up the camera that we have pointed at it right now. There it is. So what we're seeing up here on the screen is a ping pong ball inside a wine glass. And if we hit just the right frequency, if we gave this wine glass a little ping with our finger, a little tone will be emitted, which is the resonant frequency of that wine glass. If we manage to hit just that right frequency, when we add energy to this wine glass at just the right time, we can get that wine glass to oscillate further and further. Now, I will say this. We're not going to attempt to break it in here, because if we did, we'd probably also damage your ears as well. To break a wine glass, it takes a little more effort than some of those old commercials might be.
Yeah, in fact, you parents out here, you remember the Ella Fitzgerald commercial, the Memorex commercial years ago? And hitting that high E and she broke back? Yeah, that's what we're going to do today.
But we're not going to break it though.
We'll try. We'll give it our best shot. We're going to make any promises.
We're going to fake it.
Really rely on the flaws within the glass when the glass was formed to have one that would actually break. So we'll do our best here, but let's see if we can at least get it to resonate during our last song.
Okay. And maybe the house lights down one more time so we can see the screen. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. 1, 2.
Did you see the wine glass resonating for at least part of the time there?
Yes.
Yeah, it was working pretty well until we blew something out. So, I have to actually admit something here. It was not the musicians at all that were hitting that right frequency, the resonant frequency of the wine glass. Behind the curtain here, literally.
There's a little bitty guy.
A man behind the curtain. Let's do the reveal. Oh, yes. Kyle, keep your head up.
Toto, don't pull the curtains.
All right. Give Kyle a hand.
Yeah, give Kyle a hand.
So what Kyle is doing, he's working a wave generator in the back with a preamp that we have a speaker attached to the back there that was producing just the right tone, 420 hertz there, that was causing the wine glass to resonate until we apparently blew out the speaker or fuse or something like that. And eventually, very quickly, died down there. So, by hitting the right frequency, we can cause things to resonate just like that wine glass there. Alright, so we can bring up the lights. There we go. I promised before the end that we would ask you some questions. So that's the time now. Are you ready?
Are you ready?
For a quiz?
You'll be tested. We told you.
You ready or not? Here we go. So, what we got here is 5 questions that we should be able to answer. High school students do pretty well at this, so let's see how you do. All right, so our first question is this. Sound travels in what kind of wave? Is it A, a compressional wave, B, a transverse wave, or C, a torsional wave?
All right, raise your hand if it's A, compressional.
A.
Raise your hand if it's B, transverse. Raise your hand if it's 3, torsional. Ew, what's that?
Yeah, we haven't talked
Which one is it?
correct answer, I think most of the guys. A,
Hey,
compressional
give us a
wave.
hand.
All right, second question is frequency. We talked about frequency throughout the program. Frequency measures what? Is it A, the amount of energy in a sound wave, B, the number of crests in a wave, or C, the number of waves per second?
Raise your hand if it's A, the amount of energy in a sound wave. Raise your hand. Raise your hand if it's B, the number of crests in a wave. Raise your hand if it's C, the number of waves per second. Wow, what's the answer, sir?
The answer is C. You got it? All right, third question. We're halfway through here. The louder the sound, the higher the what? Is it A, wavelength, B, amplitude, or C, trough?
All right, raise your hand if it's A, wavelength. Raise your hand if it's B, amplitude. Raise your hand if it's C, trough. Oh, what's the answer, Mr. Dean?
The correct answer is B, amplitude. Amplitude measures the energy in waves. All right, doing well. Next question. When 2 waves are amplified due to kind of interference, what do we call this? Is it A, constructive interference, B, destructive interference, or C, radio interference?
Thank you, Van. Raise your hand if it's A, constructive interference. Raise your hand if it's B, destructive interference. Raise your hand if it's C, radio interference.
What is the answer, Mr. Dean?
The correct answer is A, constructive interference.
All right, give your hand.
Well done. All right, last question here, and if we can get this one, I will be very impressed. That last video that we showed you here, when those wind gusts caused the Tacoma Narrows Bridge to collapse, this was an example of what? Was it A, interference, B, frequency, or C, resonance?
Raise your hand if it's A, interference. Raise your hand if it's B, frequency. Raise your hand if it's C, resonance.
Mr. James, look at that.
Yes, they did very well. The correct answer was C.
All right. Pass the exam. All right. Thank you again for joining us for Artology, Music, and the Science of Sound. Give yourselves a round of applause for your participation. Excellent job, everybody. A collaborative effort between the Arts League of Michigan and Cranbrook Institute of Science. Feel free to visit either website. Join them at the facilities, the Birthplace Car Center and Cranbrook Institute of Science, and enjoy and vibrate for the rest of the day. Hey, hey, hey! All right. Tell your school.
Yeah. Let's stick around for a minute. We'll answer any questions.
Come up here if you have any questions. Feel free to tell your schools about the event, and we can come into your school facility if you're in the Detroit area. Join us this fall season. Thank you.
There is no charge, by the way, for the students to school.
No charge for us to come to your school. Yay!
now that we're done, do you have any questions? Is there anything you'd like to know regarding music or sound? Let me come down there. Go ahead.
All right, you said that frequency is like the same pitch and that kind of thing, how loud and how high and soft. Well, if you had like a trumpet or like a flute or saxophone or something like that, what makes them sound different if they're both doing the same, just as high or low?
Well, that's something I should probably ask the musicians. The difference between, for instance, a trumpet and a flute, producing different sounds, or different frequencies, which means different tones, different sounds.
Even though they're operating on the same principle, the mechanism for vibration will be different. So on a saxophone or woodwinds, for example, even though a saxophone is made mostly out of the same material as a trumpet, there's a little piece of wood called a reed, and it's attached, and you're blowing over the reed, and the reed is vibrating. So it's producing a different tone. And on an instrument like the flute, you're blowing across a hole, almost as like blowing over across a pop bottle, or to produce the tone, like so, or whistling. So just, if you produce the sound a different way, you just have a different timbre, but they still operate on the same principle.
And to add to that, there's also different amounts of air, of course, as well. The difference between a saxophone and a flute, obviously there's a larger air column than, for instance, the saxophone. So to get that to resonate, they'll resonate at a lower frequency with a bigger air column inside that instrument.
This young man way back there has a question.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no,
all
she
right.
has one right here.
Well, we'll go ahead. It's been raising his hand for a while here. Coming back. Go ahead. How does the drum work? I think Galen might be able to take that one.
The question was, how does the drum work? Is that what the question was?
Yes.
The drum works, it has a body, a hollow body. It usually is either made out of wood, or in this case, my drum set is made out of fiberglass. There's a plastic drum head that is tightened, stretched over the top of the hole, and then when I hit it, the drum head vibrates. And when it vibrates, the air passes through this hole to produce sound. So if there's no hole, there's no sound. It sounds like this. With the hole, it sounds, the air can pass through, and it'll resonate. This hole will make it resonate. The head vibrates and the hole makes it resonate so you can get sound.
So the air is coming out of that bottom of that drum and resonating to make that sound.
Yeah, kind of like the big drum that James had. When he hit it, the air blew people's hair back. But this operates on the same principle.
I just want to know the name of your fantabulous band. You guys are awesome. Where can we come? Where can we buy your album? Where can we see you perform? Are you guys on American Idol or America's Got Talent? I mean, you guys are great. Thank you.
We actually may violate an age problem with American Idol. They don't, I do. No, we are actually the Artology band, and we work with Artology and the Cranbrook Arts League of Michigan collaborative. However, each one of us has their own band or live performance opportunities. Galen, share where you play. Everybody share where you play and what you're doing this time to pump that gig.
Well, on Fridays, I'm actually playing with a man named Alan Barnes down at the Whitney on Woodward and Canfield. We play out in a nice terrace outside, really nice, from 7 to 10 every Friday. And then you can look for me with a group called Straight Ahead or Marcus Belgrave as well.
Okay, Ibrahim.
Hello, it's on?
Yes, it's on, Ibrahim.
I'm Ibrahim, the bass player of the group. You can find me Monday nights at the Jazz Loft for some Greek time with Millie Hill. Wednesday night I'm with Scott Covington at the Harvard House. And actually I perform with John's group on Fridays at Burt's. And we are tour with different people and also teach. So thank you for having us.
Hi, I'm Pam, and you'll see me performing a lot of time. Galen performs in my group, I perform in her group, Ibrahim performs in my group. John sometimes performs with me. I'll be at the Detroit Jazz Fest on September the 4th, and I'll be doing the, the Arts Beats and Eats.
And who's your husband, Pamela?
His name is Wendell Harrison. He's not here today. Well, we all have CDs and recordings. I mean, you can find us on iTunes, CD Baby. John, where you go?
He's everywhere.
Yeah, I'm everywhere. I'm at Burt's. I'm going to double dip on Burt's at Easter Market. If you're ever on Friday night, we go late to 3 a.m.
Sun Messengers.
Sun Messengers, you can go check out the website, www.sunmessengers.com, and check out the calendar. We do quite a few things out in the different communities. Maybe, and official band of the Detroit Pistons. And today, this afternoon, in it's like an hour and 15 minutes, we'll be at the Motor City Casino.
All right. And then I'm an actor. You probably see me in film or on stage more than anything else. I performed for Menopause the Musical for about 5 years. And then I'm working on a CD with Randy Scott called Permission. It's an inspirational jazz CD. Give me some more time to get it out. We're working on it right now. The last film that you've probably seen me produced in was Butterfly Effect 3, Crossover, High School, Street Kings with Ray Liotta. We just I just finished shooting with him last week. So, yeah, so come see us. Go to lindaboston.com and you can see everything I'm doing. Any other questions out here? Anyone? Got one? A little one. Yes, I will come to you, darling. Oh, how do microphones work, Mr. James and Miss Kaylin and Miss Pamela? That's a good question. Very good question.
That's a very good question. Traditional microphones, I believe, have a membrane inside of them. Oh, all right, here we go. That pick up those vibrations, and they're able to turn it into, like we were seeing up here in the oscilloscope, something electronic. So it can take something that's physical, these compressional waves of energy, transmit it into something electronic, which goes through wireless signals here in this case, or through the wires. And then when they reach the speakers, which we have around here, you can't see them behind the mesh there, then it gets translated back into something that we can hear with each push of the cone of the speaker. Sends out those compressional waves again until it reaches our ear. So it all has something to do with capturing these vibrations, translating it into something that can be communicated through the mixers, through the amplifiers, and then back out to the speakers through your ears.
Now, is that similar to when we were kids and we would put two cans and a string between them and stretch them and talk into a can, and the vibration of the string, you could hear it on the other end? So you've got to try that example with her when you get home. Okay, that'd be wonderful. Okay? You had another question, David? Your agency. How does the trumpet work, Mr. John? Did he leave? Is he still? Okay. How does the trumpet work?
Formula is if you're about to say the letter M.
Say mmm. Oh.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear it?
And then keep the corners of your lips tight, but and blow air through the middle, the center part, like so.
There you go. Now, if you do that into a mouthpiece and you do it just right, you have to do it just right. It's nice. There you go. If you do that, you might be a trombone or two up there.
I see Miles Davis too.
Get that damn trombone.
All right. Any other questions? You got questions?
I thought that on American Idol, like the age limit was like 20-something. So
we're 21.
No.
We're 21. Very good, very good. Thank you all for joining us. Enjoy the rest of Maker Faire. We had a great time with you.
Thank you very much. And, I've just been talking to James, and we'll try and get a list of all the recordings and performances on the Make Zine blog, which I don't know if everybody knows, but Make has a blog called Make Zine, makezine.com, and we'll get a list of all that up on the blog in the next couple of days. So thank you very much. This was a really special treat.